Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor, I'm confused. You are there pointing the finger at someone else, and you can't answer the very basic question of how many people are not back in their homes, and you're somehow pointing towards a previous administration on your inability to answer even the very basics of questions, Governor? How is that?
I think the comment I made about the previous administration had to do with...
Well, let me ask about this administration. Why did you cancel a $250 million flood recovery contract just a few days ago?
We didn't issue the contract.
Why did you cancel it?
We didn't cancel the contract. We didn't issue
Well, according to my documents, that you canceled that on March the 16th, 2017, and you basically, because Mr. Bankston had an opinion that it needed to be canceled.
Well, there was no contract issued. We pulled back the RFP. We reissued, we started the process.
Why did you get rid of that particular vendor? Because what I understand is that they had submitted a proposal, it was going forward, and one person, Larry Bankston, somehow said that there was a problem there, Governor.
Well, I think that's inaccurate. The licensing contracted board voted to adopt that opinion as its own. At that point in time, the first two finishers
Does Mr. Bankston's son work for a competing contractor in that?
You know, I've heard that. I'm not certain.
So how can you be so certain about some aspects of this, Governor, and yet seem to have no recollection on the facts and the questions that we have to ask here this morning?
Well, first of all, I think I have pretty good handle on the facts.
So how many people are displaced?
Well, I've answered that particular question as best
No, well, you haven't answered it. You've said you don't know.
As best I can this morning, I've answered it for you, Congressman.
So were you surprised that you were going to be testifying here this morning?
No, sir.
Then why would you not have the... I mean, we're talking about real people's lives here, Governor. And if you have a compassionate bone in your body, wouldn't you think that you would know the number of people that have been affected by this?
I know the number of people who've been affected, Congressman.
Still.
The question is how many people are out of their homes today. And we don't have any information where we can roll that up and know how many people... we know how many are obviously in manufactured housing units. We know the 250 who are in...
So do you believe that you are without blame of any of the responsibility of getting people in proper housing in the appropriate manner, that you're completely blameless in all this, Governor?
I would never say that I'm completely blameless. And in fact, I said we learned lessons. We could do things better, and hopefully there won't be next time.
But you were sitting there comparing your norms to historical norms.
Well, I was quoting a letter that came from HUD.
And sometimes when you compare to historically bad things, that doesn't mean we're making much progress.
Congressman, I was quoting a letter that came from HUD that said we were historically fast in the state action plan submission and approval. That's a fact.
All right. Well, we want more information on exactly why this RFP was rescinded, and if there was a conflict of interest, because some of our information would indicate that there might have been. And I'm not asking you, I'm asking you to get back to this committee to help illuminate that particular idea, because if there's a conflict of interest because of bidding improprieties, that's a major concern to this Oversight Committee. Wouldn't you agree it should be?
Well, it should be if that happened. The RFP was pulled
So you're
back.
saying it didn't happen?
I said if that happened. I didn't say whether it did one way or the other.
All right. But you'll find out and get back to this committee?
Sure, we will find out.
Okay, thank you. Let me go on a little bit further because I'm out of time. Mr. Fenton, let me tell you, I have a good relationship with FEMA. We've had major storms in North Carolina. I love my FEMA people. But let me tell you, something I saw today just stinks to the core. We've got emails that would suggest that the #1 priority that FEMA had was a political motivation prior to an election. It says, and I quote, "We have no way to predict what news this will do to our operation, and congressional offices will use prior to an election." Wouldn't you think the major component for FEMA would be to get people in housing and make sure that that housing is safe and it has nothing to do with political consequences?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, let me go even further, because that was troubling enough, but this is extremely troubling, a FEMA document where it talks about the #1 priority for FEMA was negative publicity. Should that be the #1 priority?
No, sir.
All right, so let me show you what the lowest priority was. And this is from your document. And this is very, very troubling because the lowest priority, Tier 3 is what you have, which it says lowest priority, and it has to do with mobile home units issues. It says status. We have an applicant calling stating that they have a 2-year-old special needs child who is desperate need for surgery but can't get surgery until they have a stable living situation instead of their 30-foot camper. The child is very sick and they have nowhere to go at this point, and they need an MHU is needed as soon as possible, and you had it as a low priority Tier 3? What in the world could have put this as a low priority?
Sir, my priority are survivors, and I don't know where that document came from, but I'm going to find out after this, and I'll make sure that we change whoever wrote its priorities.
I would suggest that we quit looking at the political motivations and start taking care of people, and I'll yield back.
I concur.
Thank the gentleman. We'll now recognize the